This is Dominique Wilkins.
Hey, this is Sean Kemp.
This is Gary Payton.
Hey, this is Pau Gasol.
NBA fans, what's up? This is Vince Carter here.
Hey, what's up? This is Matt Barnes. If you're an old school NBA fan like I am, make sure you check out the Basketball Time Machine with my man Sean David.
Hello, good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Basketball Time Machine. I'm your host, Sean David. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode, we got a special guest in the house, two-time NBA All-Star, Terry Cummings. Terry, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Sean. It's good to be here with you again.
Yeah, man. I had you on the show, I think it was a year ago, and there you told me that your favorite player back in the days was Dr. J. And I wondered, did you ever tell him?
I don't know if I ever did, but I always showed. I was very enamored by him as a person from the time I was a little kid. Dressed the way he dressed, the way he handled himself, and balling wasn't the primary thing. Especially, as a teenager, I got to play with him for the first time or play against him, playing in the Jesse Jackson Push for Excellence games in Gary, Indiana. And I was still in high school when I played against him the first time. But it was always, I always spoke very highly of him. And so when I did interviews and that same question was asked, that was the same answer I gave. So
okay.
To answer your question, I don't know if I directly told him, but I always showed him that kind of respect.
Nice, man. So what was so special about Dr. J that he was your guy? Because in your younger days, there were so many incredible players, so there had to be something special about Dr. J that he's your main guy.
Well, like I said, it wasn't primarily basketball. It's just I love the way he carried himself. And, initially a lot of us weren't business savvy, and a lot of us didn't have anything but basketball. But Dr. J was one of the first cats I remember doing business on a major level. Putting his family out front, letting everybody know about his family, his kids, and what was really important, the philanthropic part of it. And I mean, he set an example for me that it was not just about basketball, but you still had to be good at it.
Now, this is kind of a weird question, but I have to ask. Like, when you were playing in college, you played for DePaul. And we have to remember back in the days, there was no internet. I was always wondering, how do you guys even know about the other great players on the other teams that you didn't play against?
We still had a lot of pregame or practice footage we would get, because that footage had to come from games they played or stuff that the universities would share with each other. But we would have pregame footage. I would study footage, and we didn't do it so much in high school, but in college, when we got to the collegiate level, it was really imperative to know the other players, because you didn't always get a chance to see them. And then, what was different about DePaul at the time is that DePaul was an independent and not a part of any conference. So pretty much everybody we played, with few exceptions, were teams that were part of conferences that we hadn't seen play on a continual basis. So we had to see them each time as if it was the first time. So we had to do a lot of film. The coaches prepared us for those games. We knew who we were playing against before we got out there.
Now, when you were in college, you wore the number 32. Then when you made it to the NBA, you wore number 34. Was there a special reason why you had those numbers? Did they have a secret meaning that you want to tell me about?
It was always, I believe in high school, I wore 32. And I wanted 33, but 33 wasn't available because I was also a big Kareem fan at the time in high school. But when I got to college, I don't know that it really mattered to me as much, because, Doc was number 6 and I wasn't wearing number 6. I think by the time I got to college, I had really got to a point where I was thinking about creating my own legacy, and I was the prototype small forward, big forward, center coming into the league as a rookie. And gradually 34 became the number that a lot of the power forwards wore that were playing the game at the time.
Okay, but that is kind of weird because, as you already mentioned, that became a very popular number with like Charles Barkley had 32 before he had number 34. Okay, Patrick Ewing had number 33. Hakeem Olajuwon had 34. So a lot of big guys suddenly, all of a sudden, were those kind of numbers.
Right.
So
And I can't speak for other cats, but I think it was a real, formidable number because it to me, as I got older, I started to look at it from a different place. The number 34 together, 3 and 4 was 7, and it was a number of completion. As I moved on in my career, got to New York. Charles Oakley had the number 34. So I chose 35 because 3 and 5 are 8, and they are the number of new beginning. And so I started to look at things, more prophetically and think of them in terms of what they meant to me as to where I was and where I was going, as opposed to, constantly going back, because everything you do has significance. You just have to decide you want to believe in it or not, So for me, it was no brainer just to keep growing and to keep becoming more and more of who I am expecting myself to be. So numbers is a good way of looking at it.
Interesting, man. Now, you made it to the NBA in 1982, and many players have a hard time with the transition from college ball to the NBA level. And I wanted to know, what was the biggest change from you from a basketball standpoint, from college to the NBA?
It was playing 3 college seasons in 1 year in travel. It was not the game. I'd been playing against pros since I was 16 or 17 in our Pro-Am in Chicago, which was equal to or better than the Rutgers in New York. So we were already playing against great talent, and the travel schedule was very difficult because I was playing in San Diego. We didn't have very many direct flights, and so we had to be up at 5 or 6 in the morning going through the regular airport with the common people, so to speak. And it depends. Sometimes you had 2 connections, and then seating was based upon seniority as far as first class back then. And I didn't very often sit in the back, but I knew it was uncomfortable for our big guys, who were bigger than me. But ultimately, that's my experience.
Now, back in 1982, in your first season, you're playing against some of the best guys on the planet. But was there one guy, and I would ask you to narrow it down to one guy, who was the one guy who was better than you expected?
I think when I came into the league, I don't know that I could tell you that about any one person, because there were so many cats I had never seen play before. And so when I came into the league as a rookie, I'll tell you who it was. And he wound up in the Rookie of the Year running, but he didn't win it because I won it. But it was Clark Kellogg. He was a rookie just like me, but he was better than I thought. He was quicker than I thought and much smarter. He was a very cerebral kind of player, and even though he was a rookie, there were vets, you could look at and say at my position, Calvin Natt, Lonnie Shelton, Maurice Lucas, and cats like that, I was amazed at them too, because they were, the latter two, Lonnie Shelton and Maurice Lucas, they were brawlers almost, So sorry about that.
No problem.
The phone will ring.
No problem, man. I can't believe it. You are actually the third person who names him as the guy who's better than people would expect.
Well, I think if he hadn't had so many problems with his knees, people would talk more about Clark. And Clark was really a great player, on both ends of the court, and had a very unorthodox kind of offense. But he was a guy that I didn't take for granted. We would run up against each other all the time when he was playing, I believe, in Indiana. when I first came into the league, because I missed the whole training camp in about the first 5 or 6 games of the season because of contract negotiations. But the very first game I played, I think, was in Milwaukee, and the second game was in Indianapolis against Clark.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, when we talk about players that are better than people would expect, one name that comes to mind is Larry Bird. And I would like to have your opinion because you played a lot against him. You were both in the Eastern Conference. What was your first impression of Larry? And is he really that good? Like, for example, he's my second favorite player of all time. And the older I got and the more understanding of the game I got, the more I fell in love with this guy because, in my opinion, his basketball IQ is off the charts, and he was just a complete basketball player. And it has nothing to do with his physical attributes. It's just up here and heart. And I would like to know from you, who played against him so many times, what your opinion was at first, and now at the end of his career, what you think now about him.
Well, I think they both are, the same. What I first thought, and at the end of his career. Bird was a great and awesome player. And I think at times, because of the nature of the NBA being a, majority colored game, that sometimes, you get around your friends and they say, well, Larry Bird is a lot of hype. He's just hype because he's white and woo, woo, woo. And I said, no, he can play. And the thing is it's not over respecting him. It's just being honest. He could play. He kind of played the in-between speed. He wasn't fast and he wasn't slow. And I think that the way he, played the game in that in-between place gave him an advantage on a lot of us who were playing in the either fast or slow realm, because he played right in the middle. He wasn't jumping over, a telephone book most of the time, but he was getting offensively what he wanted done. Defensively, he was more of a roamer than a defender. My rookie year or so in the league, when we had to go against each other all the time, he could get his and I would get mine. And things didn't really change until they brought in Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish, because then they put Kevin McHale on me. I beat him, and Robert Parrish is sitting back there waiting on you. But I think sometimes people may not know how really good he was, but you have to take into account who he was playing against.
Exactly.
And he had the numbers that he was getting against players who could play and had numbers as well. And so that's the thing that would dictate, not the color of his skin and not the fact that he played in Boston. I think Boston was just the perfect place for him. And I think if you find a perfect place for your talent and your ability, that's how you become the most productive.
Many people say, oh, Larry Bird can't jump. He's super slow. And I had John Sally on the show not too long ago, and he said, okay, I can't be talking about Larry Bird when I say slow, because he wasn't slow. He was in the middle, right in the middle. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be right what you say, man.
Yeah.
You back in the days, and I looked at a lot of footage in your early 20s, and nowadays we see so many bigs who can handle the ball and shoot the mid-range jumper and those kind of things. Looking at your early footage, I got to say you were ahead of your time, because you could push the ball, grab a rebound, push the ball. You could handle the ball and those kind of things. And when we're talking about your early 20s, we're talking about the mid-80s. So you were really one of the earliest guys who would do that.
Yeah, I was the prototype of it, to be honest, because most of the guys before me were either brawlers and rebounders, or had a jump shot and rebounded, but they didn't have all of it. They couldn't, like, I ran like a two-guard. I ran when we did our sprints, I ran with the guards, and I outran pretty much all of them. I ball handled, I had the jump shot, I had the low post game, I had the in-between game. And I think that even cats like Barkley and Malone, they came after me. They didn't come before me.
True.
They came after me. But the precedence was the game I had. And my game didn't come from the NBA. It came from playing street ball in Chicago and playing with what we would call CYC leagues and in those leagues where they were neighborhood teams. One of them was called the G-Men. The other one was called the Jazz. We were the little brothers of the older brothers, but we would play against some of the best talent in the city that no one knew. And one of the things is because I was 6'9", and a lot of times the guards didn't know how to get the ball to me, I had to learn to have ball handling skills and a jump shot. Because if I wanted to be a part of the offense, I had to be able to handle the ball, and I had to be able to take shots where I could use all of my abilities. And to me, the most important piece about being an offensive player is you have to be able to get to your sweet spots. Because once you get there, no one can defend you. There's no defense for that. You either have to have a bad day or you mentally are not there. Because once you get to your sweet spots, that's where I practice day and night. That's where I practice in my mind through visualization. That's where I practice shooting all those hundreds of thousands of shots in those sweet spots on both sides of the court and in the middle, and so once I get to them, I feel unstoppable. And it doesn't matter who I'm playing or who's sticking me.
Now, you played for the Milwaukee Bucks in your first NBA years, and it's kind of funny. Like when you talk to the average Joe about the greatest teams of the 1980s, you always hear, okay, the Pistons, the Lakers, the 76ers, but nobody's talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. And that to me is a crime because you had so many great players on the team, and you were at the time known to give the best teams in the league trouble. Why do you think nobody's talking about Milwaukee anymore?
Because we were small, we were part of a small market before small markets could do big market work. Nowadays, small markets like San Antonio, maybe if we consider Phoenix and some of these other small markets, Utah, places like that have gotten a lot of glow. And the thing is unfortunately for us at Milwaukee, we came along at a time we didn't have the social media platforms and stuff. And if you were a small market, the only place you were really promoted was in that market. But we knew that when teams had to play against us, whether it was at their place or ours, they knew that they had to come with their A game because we were always in the top 2 or 3 teams in the league.
Yes.
Whether they called our name out or not, we knew that. And we, during the years I broke in with San Diego, the Clippers, for 2 years, and then I got traded to Milwaukee in 84, 85.
Yes.
Those were the years where I learned how to play NBA basketball. Don Nelson was the coach, and he gave me credibility as a player because I also played in 2 All-Star games under him. But I was enamored initially only because I thought I should have been an All-Star a lot more because of my numbers carrying me and my team was winning. But I learned real quickly there's a lot of politics in the league, and it doesn't matter how good you are. To be recognized really is an implication that comes more often than not from the powers that be. They have to be able to market you. And in most sports and most things in general, there's only so many people that get marketed on the major side. Everybody else, no matter what market you're in, you gotta, if I knew now what I knew then, I would have marketed myself. But and you would do better now than you would have done then because nobody was really ready for it back then.
But on the other hand, again, that makes the 2 all-time All-Star appearances even more special because we also have to remember the competition that you had on your position back in the days was at an all-time high. Like, we're talking about some of the best players who ever touched an NBA basketball, and he still made the All-Star team twice. So I know it's kind of bittersweet,
Yeah, it is. But, it's like I learned not to place the importance of who I am in ancillary awards. Because if you only play for the awards, you're going to always fall short because you're not in control of that. You're only in control of what you can do on the court. The rest is, again, it's powers that be kind of stuff. They vote in. And if you pay attention to sports and in life in general, but especially sports, one of the things you'll notice is that in their preseason or before the preseason, they already start telling you who they think is going to win. They tell you who's going to win what awards, what teams are going to win the championship, because that's concisely what they've come. That's the point that they have come to, and they know what would be better for their business. And again, it's to me, all you do is pay attention. Because where are you located at, Sean?
In Germany, man.
Okay, so even in Germany, I mean, soccer's huge there, and all of that. I mean, if you paid attention to the soccer profiles and all that stuff, they're telling you who they want to win. They're telling you what they want to have happen and all of those things. And if those teams live up to it, they'll win. You know, the players will be the MVPs that they have chosen ahead of time. You know, sometimes I think it's deservedly so, and then other times I just think it's overkill. You know, but that's me being a professional and an antagonist at the same time. You know, thinking differently.
But you got a very healthy way how to deal with that. So. In 1989, you actually joined the San Antonio Spurs. And this was a very interesting time period because that was the year when David Robinson finally came to the Spurs too. I think he was drafted like a year or 2 years prior, and in '89 he finally joined the team. And to me, as a basketball fan, and that's not what I was watching at that time because I was too young to watch it at that time, but that's from all the research that I did over the years. I always felt that you and David Robinson, that always looked really, really good. And you guys complemented each other well. Did you also feel the same way back in the days, or do you have a different opinion on that?
No, I was brought in to actually make the landing of David in the NBA really easier. And not just for him, but Sean Elliott was on that team as well. And Sean and David came in at the same time, and they were two very high draft picks. And the Spurs explained to me, you know, we just don't want to put all the pressure on them. And I think that year, David and I averaged over 20-something a game the first year or two, and then Sean came along later, you know. But, yeah, I feel the same way. I thought that it was the first time in my career I actually had a real center to play with, someone who was a threat every game.
Yes.
You know, because prior to that, I mean, I played with Bill Walton in my first 2 years, but he was injured and he was not at tip-top, you know, what you would be thinking of him and historically what has been written about him. Then when I got to Milwaukee, Jack Sigma was the only guy, and he was at the end of his career too. David was the first time I got a chance to play with somebody who was young, viral, and could actually get up and down the court and play, you know. So yeah, I thought we went together really well.
Do you feel that your time with the Spurs was your best shot at winning an NBA championship?
Actually, I thought we should have had a great opportunity with that group, and I think we had a great run. I mean, we were in position to do some awesome things on that championship level. They just didn't get accomplished, and so over time, you don't get down on yourself. You just realize, you know what, I've had a great opportunity. I've played 18 years in the NBA against the best players that have ever played and been assembled at one time in the 80s and 90s. And my last 6 or 7 years, I was pretty much a player coach, you know, and I enjoyed that too. But I enjoyed the latter part of my career more than I did the beginning, because I got to play the whole game. I didn't have to just be a scorer or a rebounder. I defended. You know, I became a better passer, more cerebral in my approach to the game. But I think so. I think we one year we went to the conference finals against Houston, and I just felt like that would have been a real perfect year for us. You know, and in spite of how you know, Olajuwon was playing in that series, we had David, Sean, and a bunch of young cats starting, and had myself and Doc Rivers, Paul Pressey. You had a lot of cats coming off the bench that had helped aid us into that didn't get a chance to have the opportunity to play in that series the way we played during the season. So I think that was a conflict, and it also affected that part for us. But nonetheless, I have no regrets.
I'm trying to remember. Was that the time when Dennis Rodman was on the roster already?
Dennis came after that.
After that, okay.
I think, yeah, he came after that.
Because that, to me, as a basketball fan, was very, very unsatisfying because I felt that from the players, you would have a championship team. But and Dennis proved what he can do when he's serious. That's what he proved when he was with the Pistons and when he was with the Bulls. But when he was playing with you guys, it seemed like he was a little bit out of control. How did you experience that time period?
Yeah, I mean, he was going through something. I mean, maybe that was his midlife crisis, but it took everybody on the team and caused a bit of imbalance. Because I don't think that a cat getting you 16, 17 rebounds a game is going to win a championship. He's really a role player at best that has the persona of something more. And that was what I think the media was attracted to, was his persona. And Dennis was a great person as far as I knew. But as an athlete, he came to play every day, and you could never, refute that. But I think that there was enough stuff about him that caused difficulties on some of the younger guys performing, because he was given preferential treatment in how they dealt with him in San Antonio. And I remember we had a meeting one day, and Dennis was at the meeting, and all these players had been complaining. And then when it was time for them to bring out their grievances, none of them talked. So I told them, right in the front of him, I said, we will not be a team till you understand he is not the team. He is a part of the team. And as long as you all sit up here and choose to keep your mouth shut, all you've done is basically not let him know, for one, how you really feel. And two, you've shown me something about you, So I think people get away with what you let them get away with. If you let them get away with it, you don't have a right to complain.
Now, in the mid-1990s, the Bulls were the most dominant team, and everybody was talking about the Bulls, and there was that super hype. And I wanted to know from you, from a player's perspective, now with the Last Dance documentary, everybody is seeing the behind the scenes and stuff. Was it special for you when you were playing against the Bulls, or was it just a team like any other team, you just wanted to beat those guys? No. Or did you also feel it was part of history happening?
I think it was more of the latter two things. I believe it was always like you had to come with your A game when you played them. But it was also historical in the sense that, Michael was playing, Scottie Pippen was playing. They had a crew of cats that were coming in and out of the system at the Bulls that were great players that came there to win championships and went back on with their careers. So it was not like you can go in there and not be prepared. And you definitely didn't want to go in there and lay down, because they'd run you right out the gym. And I, fortunately, most of my career had pretty good success against the Bulls, and on teams I played on. But I think Mike all by himself was enough of an influence for you to come prepared to play above what you were used to.
I saw a clip, I think half a year ago, where you mentioned a story. I think it involved Don Nelson saying something about Jordan. And you played with Jordan, right?
I played with him in the summer Pro-Am. We would play against each other. We would play with each other on the same team for years. We played maybe 6, 7 years, maybe 8 years. So we had a better relationship back then. I haven't talked to him much since I retired.
All right. Well, okay. Oh, since you retired, so 2000. Ooh, 20 years, man.
Mm-hmm.
Been a while. Now, you played 18 years in the NBA, and I would like to know, what was the greatest time period of your NBA journey? Where do you enjoy yourself the most? Where do you feel you were at the height of your game? What was the perfect time period for you?
Well, the height of my game was from my rookie year to about my 9th or 10th year. In those years, I averaged over 22 points and 9 boards a game. But my most productive overall years were the last 7 or 8. I got to play the whole game. I wasn't laden with the responsibility. I had to go out every day and score 23, 25 points and get 10, 12 boards, and still defending the biggest, strongest guy on the court. And, toward the end, it was just like, they're paying these young guys to do this. Let them do it, and I'll do this. And then when the young cats would get into slumps and stuff like that, I'd put the team on my back for a week or two and do what I did when I was younger and then go back to my role. I think the greatest thing was just understanding, because I had been the man so long, I knew how to play a role, and it made me a better player.
You have to write a book, man, about that. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next question is a little bit off topic, but I have to ask you because I have the feeling that we could be on the same page. Now, you are a musician yourself, and you sing, and I would like to know, who was your favorite singer in the 80s?
Man, it may not have been the 80s, but, I came up with some Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Jackie Wilson, old school cats. Sam Cooke was my father's favorite. And the new school of people, LeVerts, Brian McKnight, Michael McDonald, cats like that.
Yes.
I mean, it's like I grew up with them, and to me, that's more new school than these younger cats now, New Edition and all John, what's the name that sang with them? Well, they were all
Johnny
on there,
Gill.
but Johnny Gill. I mean, a lot of them crooners and stuff like that, but I really am more, I lean more toward the old school. Them jokers were not just great singers, they were professionals. And to me, the mark of someone who is, great at what they do is not just the fact that they do it, but it's how professionally they do it. For instance, there are times I've been on the stage where my voice was not on the AAA level where I was used to it. It wasn't doing what I wanted to do. But as a professional, I had been paid to do a gig. And so I would sing in the 1A, 2A range for me, but they wouldn't know it because I still performed as a professional. And the same was true with basketball. I'd come out sometimes and I wasn't feeling it, or I wasn't on my A game. So my B and C game had to carry me across that day. And sometimes that meant I wouldn't score as much, but I would get more rebounds. I'd defend, I'd get steals, I'd set up other players on the team, and we get the W.
Okay, knowing that now, I know I could borrow your CD player and I would be good. Got a very nice taste, man. No, I knew we would be on the same page. Like, Michael McDonald is my man. My favorite singer of all time is James Ingram. So
yeah, he fits right in there. And James is one of the people that I really did enjoy too. His musical prowess, range vocally, and the fact that he was a tremendous writer.
Yes.
He was writing for a lot of people, and I liked him too. I didn't mention him in there, but he belonged in my group because honestly, I would travel, and it would be in my CD player, James Ingram, Lionel Richie, Sam Cooke. A lot of old school cats just be sitting up in there just jamming away. And then I like the funk of what was my man's the group name? Sly Stone. Them. I loved that they were funky. They were really funky, and they brought in like that whole thing. Were part of that thing with Bootsy Collins and all of them. So I like the funk, that they brought with them. And George Clinton.
So everybody that's listening to this podcast, I just had to make sure that I include some music questions because I actually want you guys to listen to some of the artists that Terry and I was just talking about, because this is some great music. But Terry, before I let you go, you kept yourself pretty busy over the last couple of years. You are a pastor, but you also have some other projects which I wanted to talk to you about. Can you please tell me what you are starting in 2021?
Well, in January, we will be starting. We've started a company called, I'm working with a company called virtual.com and Virtual TV. I am the CEO in charge of studio, also over entertainment and news, or entertainment and sports. And there've been things I've been doing on and off for over 30-something years, and then even connected to the industry as well. But I'm looking forward to it. It's a streaming network that streams across the world, and it's not just streaming. We have other little connected pieces and parts that make it very attractive to me as a business person and a visionary. So if you, for those who are streamers, that's through Roku. And not only them, we have a cable connect with Vidco, who Vidco is out of Atlanta, Georgia, and that's the cable company that we're riding into the sunset with. So that's what I'm doing right now, along with pastoring. This year's 13 years of pastoring the ministry here in the Atlanta area, actually in Stone Mountain, Georgia. So it's been great. I mean, I don't have any complaints. I don't have boring days. I mean, my days are filled with what I want to do and what I set out to do.
Oh, man, Terry, it was a pleasure having you on the show again. Can you please promise me that we do this again so I can...
3 times sharp,
yeah,
man. We'll do it again.